everybody, and welcome back. Haven't seen you guys in a while. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July. And we will be talking about Zepbound 10 milligram journey. But I did want to share this one thing, because we all know what kind of person Bruce Springsteen is. Those of you who, those of you who follow him, great, but there's a lot of us out there, especially veterans, that don't appreciate what that man stands for anymore. So I had this tape that I probably had since high school, probably over 40 years, and it was sitting in my collection. And then I realized to myself, you know what? I'm not going to have this kind of cassette sitting in my collection anymore, because I just personally, giving it to you straight, I don't tolerate that guy or anything he stands for. He makes too much of his career about discussing politics, and frankly, I think me and a lot of other people are just about sick and tired of hearing his crap. So I want to just share a little clip that I had on the 4th of July. Just want to take a brief look at it. Here it is. Yeah, 30, 40 years of having this tape, it's time to say goodbye to it. Because I do not, on the 250th birthday of our nation, am I gonna have a commie. There we go. That's about right. Let's get that. Say goodbye, Bruce. You were born to run, fucker. I was born to blow shit up. Now that's how we get rid of communism on the 4th of July. Look at the tape. Blew that son of a bitch into space. Yes, sir. That's how we get rid of communism. Bye-bye, Bruce. Yes, sir. Man, okay. All the way up over the trees and everything. Oh, yeah. Born in the USA, right? Happy 4th of July, blowing away communism. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did, and a lot of people that saw it did. But, hey, you gotta let the truth speak for itself. At least many good Americans would, anyway. So, let's get on with the what we're here for. I just moved up to the 10 milligrams. You can see that. It's the 10 milligrams Zepbound. Spoke to my pharmacist. She keeps in touch with me, and one of the things, as I said to a lot of the guys getting this stuff from VA, is that what they will do is they like to follow up with you and see how the medication's working. So 7.5 wasn't bad, but I have to admit I got to a point where I was kind of plateauing. I would hit this level where hit 7.5 milligrams, and it was just like, okay, I'm losing a little bit of weight. I think I might have gotten about, I don't know, my opinion, about 5 pounds out of it or so. I got down to like about 218, 217, and it kept fluctuating. It kept going 217 and 218 and 217 and 218, and then all of a sudden it would dip, So then it would go like 2, maybe 16. So for the last 3 weeks I've been on the 10 milligram. It was kind of sticking around in that same area. It would hit the 10 milligram. I'm sorry, it would hit the weight threshold of about, again, bouncing from that 216 to 218 range. And then all of a sudden, I checked the scale last, which was about 4 days ago, and it was at 213. Just a shade under, well, basically it's like, I'm going to say about 213.5, give or take, if you want to be real accurate about it. And it was like it was a weird drop, but that's one of the things you need to know about this medication, is that's how it works. And when I did research on it, that's what it will actually tell you, is that it has, you'll get these nose dives where it just goes up, down, and boom, just takes a dive, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, this thing really took a drop. But it definitely from a standpoint, the medication itself, that milligram is definitely more noticeable. Because I think one of the things that I told my pharmacist, I'm like, well, I do still get the occasional, I guess it would be like, I take it on Saturdays, okay? And I would get to about Wednesday, a day like today, and I would start noticing the food noise coming on a lot more, and appetite suppression would start to dip, so by the time you get to the end of the week, your appetite picks up a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like it was before this medication, in other words, where you just go back for seconds and thirds on your meals. This was one of these things where it got to where, like, it suppresses the appetite. I'm not gonna lie, it definitely changes. And don't mind me, I'm staring at some of the notes I took on this stuff. But what I had is a noticeable effect. Like, I'm seeing more of a suppression. Food noise is a lot less, and it goes deeper into the week. So now, maybe Fridays when, I really notice it starts to taper off some. But like now, still feel pretty good. It's midweek. I still feel pretty decent. And I don't feel like I have to eat a lot. Here's an interesting thing. You will get to a point where you'll start to notice you actually do start to forget to eat, or you forget to drink. Like when I first started this whole journey, so to speak, I remember I would hit like, you went to the store prepping and everything. Let me make my meals. Let me make sure I'm getting plenty of water. Make sure my proteins are all there. And, you go through that whole thing and you're following that religiously. But then what happens is when you get to this dose is when you really start seeing where the rubber hits the road. And now you have to sometimes remind yourself, I don't drink all the water I'm normally supposed to be drinking. I got like one of these big pitchers that you get, probably holds like, I don't know, a quart and a half, or give or take 64 ounces, I guess you could really say. But what it does, I don't go through that whole thing. I'm getting myself where I'm drinking it, and I take some of it out of there in the afternoons, and I pour it in another bottle, and that's where I make my protein drink when I go to the gym. But yeah, I don't, you got to remind yourself, like, hey, I have to have water, because you will start to feel like an upset stomach at times, because now your digestive system certainly is going to be moving a lot slower. So I definitely noticed that as well. I was actually getting to the point where, like, oh shit, at the end of the night, I'm like, I got an app that I use called Shotzi. I like to use that because it tracks the whole data of everything, like what the side effects are like, when did you take the shot, where did you last take. It kind of helps you balance out everything so that you're keeping your data, which is really good, because when my pharmacist reaches out to me, I can always send her that, and she looks at this, it gives her every stat that she could ever want, and she could actually ascertain what I need to do with that. She'll look and say, okay, so the side effects were minimal, or the suppression was really good, and she could see all the areas that need to be seen. And that's how we actually adjust. The more information you can give your doctor or pharmacist, the better that it works, because they can decide, like, I know with insurance companies, I've heard in the regular world out there, they tell you, like, they want to always bump you up quickly as possible, because I guess the supply and demand, they're like, well, we don't want to keep someone on one level for too long, because if we have too many people doing that, it's going to put a shortage of that specific one. However, with the VA, that works a lot differently. You could stay on a dose however long as it's being effective for you. If you're keeping the weight, if you're taking the weight off that you desire, and it's working, they're not going to tell you to bump it up. If you want to just get to a maintenance dose, like, hey, I hit the weight level that I want to hit, they're going to follow you with that one too. Like, hey, if this is where you want to stay, at least my pharmacist does that. She's really been great with this. And they'll keep it where you need to keep it. So for 3 weeks, no real issues with side effects. I mean, it might have some, like, a milder, like, I guess, milder constipation, you could call it, or basically like slower motility. And I think that also comes back where we discussed about water intake. If you're not getting enough water, it makes a big difference. And then there'd be some, especially with, the whole 4th of July holiday, it was just kind of like you get a few days there where the normal evenings where I would take my Miralax wasn't doing it as frequently. So that kind of, slowed the process down. But then when you get back on track, that becomes a non-issue. And I was having no more problems with motility. And you might get some looser stools. I mean, and I'm fine with that. Truth be told, it empties you out faster. That's a much better way of looking at it. And also the other thing was, when you go into the supermarkets, it's like usually one of the things that a lot of people have said in the past is that when you go through, like, you normally, especially when you're hungry or something, you go through and it's like you start buying that stuff off all the aisles, like, all right, what do I need here? What do I need here? Wasn't doing that anymore. You go in there now and it's just like the things that you normally like to eat, you don't even care about eating them. Like, you even certain meats, you might go in there and you realize to yourself, I'm not even in the mood for that. I normally would grab, maybe like, I'm trying to give you the best example. Like, let's just say like ham steaks or something, right? And you think like that's normally a good protein-based meal in the morning for breakfast. I would say, you know what? I'm not even in the mood for that. Like, you don't even have a desire to eat it anymore. Like, you'll get this point where your taste buds, or I don't know, something, it's just, you're thinking about it and you just say, I don't want it. I do try to keep up on the boiled eggs, though, because that's one of the best sources of protein. For just keep a few of them on you, throughout the day. I have one in the morning. I don't want to say like I'm taking a giant placebo. I take a boiled egg first thing in the morning with my protein shake, and then I'll take one with my lunch. So like midday snack, you just want to get that quick little hit of protein just to keep up that balance. Plus, I also have a protein shake. I use the clear, by the way, before I go to the gym, so that way I already have that covered for when you do your weight training. You want to make sure that you have protein to keep the muscle mass up, which is another thing I've mentioned in the past that's very important. Keep your muscle mass up, because when you're losing this weight, and especially when you get to the higher up doses, you're going to find yourself where you need to definitely make sure you're not losing muscle mass, because that's when you get that sunk in look. And I go slow and steady. What else? So yeah, as I said, you would go through the stores and you don't really have that desire to eat a lot of things. And quite truthfully, you start to look at things like a lot of stuff that you normally would snack on. You just get to a point where like, I don't even know what I feel like eating right now. And one of the things that, just carries me over, I get these sugar-free Lifesavers, the big one, the bags of them. I think most of the time you find wintergreen. It's in your supermarkets. Peppermint's usually not in every store. I don't know why they carry the wintergreen and not the peppermint. But anyway, I'll just, when I need to just have something just to pacify myself, I'll have one of those big Lifesavers that are sugar-free. Like the sugar-free cookies, monk fruit with allulose. I don't like they have that other one that you shouldn't have. I forgot what the ingredient is, and that's long-term use is not good cardio-wise. But you just monk fruit with allulose is what, or just plain allulose you can get like on Amazon or something like that. And that's probably I keep away from all the sugars as much as possible. But beyond that, the other thing that people have talked about was that when they're like, oh, after I started having, when this stuff starts to take effect, I don't even think about drinking no more. Fortunately for me, that's not been an issue, because on the weekend I still have my brandy, a cigar. I drink Michelob Gold. It's a light beer, more or less, and I could actually drink about 3 of them, and I don't have no issues so far anyway. And that hasn't been a problem. I mean, I've heard a lot of people, and I do mean a lot, actually specify that when they get to a higher doses or when this stuff really starts to take effect, they don't see the difference. They're like, "What? I can't really have. I don't have the desire to drink." But me, I haven't had that problem, fortunately. In fact, I would even go a step further. We had cheesecake here over the holiday too, and I had a slice of that. I don't get the big pieces that I normally do, and I don't go back for seconds and thirds like I used to do in the past. Not a problem. Excuse me. God, I hate this friggin' post-nasal drip that I've had my whole life. But it is what it is, so don't mind me clearing my throat. But I will say this. There's nothing, you'll get to a point where you can treat yourself. Like, it's not like you're restricted or you'll never have a desire to eat anything, or, you can still eat a lot of the things you liked. But this stuff will teach you to eat less of them, and that's what's important, is that you're not gorging on it, where you normally make 2 or 3 trips, at the dinner table. Now you make 1. Keep your portions right there in a plate, small, and just take the recommended serving size and drink a lot of water, and then you won't have that issue. Fatigue, that's another thing they talk about. To this point, only right after the shot, maybe the first day or 2, you might feel a little tired. And if you don't get enough sleep, obviously, if you don't suppress that at some point, even with a power nap, the next day could be, a little bit making you groggy, where you just don't have no energy to do anything. So that I would add to it, where you do get a little fatigue, or when you go to the gym, you don't feel that necessary need to, you don't have that energy to really just hit the weights hard. Then there's sometimes you can, but since I've been on this dose, yeah, energy levels are not 100%, but I manage it, and it's not horrible by no means. But you first couple of days after it, especially when you're not taking the shot for a long time. I mean, I'm only on my 3rd week. It might take a month and a half before I start to really settle in with it. And as I said, nausea. You get that grogginess. Like when you get the hunger pangs from not eating. You might get that kind of growling sensation in your stomach. That's one of the areas where that could get a little aggressive. But again, drink your water, and it helps suppress that. Eat a boiled egg, like if you're not, I don't know if you're into that, but I keep those. I keep the cheese sticks. You can eat a string cheese, a cheese stick, whatever, and or a beef jerky stick. Protein enriched. It does have sodium, but it's not a big issue, and that suppresses the appetite. It gives your stomach something to keep it happy. But I would certainly recommend drinking the water, because that's one of the areas where it can, when you get those upset stomachs, that's one of those things where water comes in handy. And I'm trying to think if I got one of the other things that I've learned too, in the beginning when I was taking this thing, one of the things that you can run into, don't press hard on this thing. And what I mean by that is, let's just, for a proper analogy, when you take the cap out, right? When you're pressing this thing against your stomach, which this is not my stomach, obviously, but when you press it, just rest it where this thing here is just touching your skin. That's all you need to do. If you see it where you see how it's like an indentation in my skin, if you do that and then click it, you're gonna feel a sting, and it's gonna leave like a bump there, and it might hurt for about a half hour. I learned that the hard way. It's like, what? It's like, why is it all of a sudden this is hurting? Because the 1 week I tried it, I pressed too hard on the pen, which you don't need to, because it's like forcing that needle deeper in. This thing's just got a very strong spring. It's just that fast. So all you gotta do is just rest it. Just as long as this little triangular thing is just touching the skin, that's all you need it to do. So light and easy. You don't have to press this hard at all. It works perfectly fine. And if you do it the way I'm saying, you'll barely even know the thing it even got in there. You'll think like you missed, or like this thing didn't go in. It did. Trust me. If you're not seeing liquid all over your skin, it went in. That was one of the things that I have noticed myself. Now, also another thing is, there's people out there that have seen some of these videos where they say like, yeah, I've taken this milligram and I'm still not seeing the results. And that goes back to, sometimes it takes a while for your body to adapt. You know, you're talking about your body's taking a rapid nosedive in weight loss. You know, it's gonna, as a defense mechanism, after a certain point, it's gonna slow down. You know, and then if you retain water weight, it might have to wait till you drink a lot of water and flush your system out, maybe make a couple of trips to the bathroom, and then eventually you get rid of that excess weight. You know, whatever you got built up in your bowels, whatever you got in your bladder, you know, your body will ultimately release water weight at some point, and that's where you see that dip. But in the beginning, it holds it a lot. There's a lot of, like, it's got to kind of like, wait, is this normal? You know, your body's adapting, because as I said, I was bouncing between 217 to 218 pounds. It just kept going up and down. I was for weeks, and I'm thinking like, why isn't this doing anything? Like, shouldn't I have seen something? Because you hear the stories of people, oh, I lost 5 pounds a week. First of all, it ain't one size fits all. Everybody is different. So what works for that person might not work for you. But for me, I researched it, and this is a common thing. So what I did do was I actually just, you know, continued on my route. That didn't change anything in my routine, didn't change anything in what I eat. Same thing, and all of a sudden, boom, dropped like 3 pounds. So it does happen. You just got to be patient with it. It's not always going to be, you know, so my suggestion is, don't deviate from your plan just because you're not seeing that weight come right off, because that's a bunch of crap anyway. But I would certainly say that the medication will work. I mean, if you're taking it 5 or 6 weeks and you're not seeing hardly a pound come off, then obviously that dose may not be for you. You know, what I had told my pharmacist, I was like, well, the 7.5, it was working okay, but now it's not. And she said, you know, well, I've had a lot of vets tell me that, you know, they're not seeing a lot of the results, and they don't start seeing them till you hit 10 milligrams, 12 milligrams, you know, and even size the 15 milligram is when they start to see it. So you're talking about the first several levels, you know, of not doing anything, and then all of a sudden it just shows up and it starts working again. Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then definitely get you know, if you can do cardio, walking, anything like that, that's definitely a plus. You don't want to miss out on that, because walking is everything too. Typically the beginning of the week I do, like Monday I'll do back and bicep workout, and I'll sometimes incorporate a form of leg workout. I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder, so I don't go out there doing any of these heavy duty, like, full body transformation workouts. And then Tuesday I'll do chest and tricep, maybe work calves in there, something like that. And then when I come in, I'll take a day off like today, and then Thursday I'll do shoulders, and I try to get the cardio in. If it's not super hot out like it's been, you know, lately, I'll try to walk outside and do like 1.25 miles walking. And then if I'm in the gym at the end of the week, I'll try to get in, you know, at least 1.5 miles to 1.75 miles, you know, at a moderate pace. So that definitely is something that, you know, you got to look into. Other than that, though, I think pretty much covered a lot of the grounds of where this medication's been. So far, so good. I would like to stay here. They sent me a 2-month supply, which I will say, it's definitely a plus when the VA sends you, you know, 2 months right up front. She says, you know, we'll just go with this, and then we'll reconvene in August and see what's going on where you're at. So with that drop at 213, hopefully by the time she contacts me, I'd like to be, below 210, hopefully. And we'll see. It's it's the whole thing's a discipline game. It's all a matter of being patient and just letting this stuff work. It's not, as I said, it's not an overnight miracle. It's a game changer, but it's also what level your body likes to adapt to. And again, I make these because I look at a lot of videos out there. For one, there's not too many guys doing these videos. You get a few here and there, especially ones doing it, speaking in terms of getting this stuff from the VA. So veterans out there that might want to have any kind of insights to what I'm, how it's been for me, that's how it's been. But yeah, I look out there and it's just like, it's 90% women doing these things. So maybe the reason I even started doing these is because you get a lot of these people out there. Like I look around, I'm like, doesn't any guys ever do these videos? And you catch one or two here and there, but not very many. They're far and few between. Mostly all of them women. And don't get me wrong, their insight's been good. I mean, they're taking the same medications as well. So I mean, women's overall body, or so to speak, in DNA, functions differently than ours. So they may be a little bit more sensitive to certain aspects of this medication than others are. So, from a guy's standpoint, I'll tell you, like, this is how it's been working for me. Because many men want to learn that, like, hey, how is this from a guy's standpoint? But their input is definitely important because they do get the side effects, and it's just kind of like, you see it from their side, like, well, if they're getting this, I got that too, or, I'm seeing the same thing. It's still an opinion, and it matters. I mean, and it helps me. But for those of you out there, that are vets, and you're getting this stuff through the VA or trying to get it through the VA, this is the way I would recommend it. Other than that, though, yeah, it's definitely been good so far. So we're gonna see how things go, and I try to keep these videos a little bit more closer together, but you gotta give it time because you have to go to the next level, and then eventually you get to this point where now I'm at a higher dose, so I'm giving you my take on what this has been like for me so far. And my goal, as I said, is to get to somewhere in the area of 190. That, I think that's a good measuring stick for me. Like, let me see how I look by then. And because the recommendation for me is, they say, well, like 165 for my height and my body. But I feel that, let me see what I look like at 190. Because when I was in the hospital 5 years ago with the severe COVID, obviously that's nature's Ozempic, so to speak, or Zepbound. When you're sitting in a hospital bed with a tube in your stomach and you get down to 197, yeah, I still felt like I had a gut, but that was, I don't know if that's just muscle flab and all that other stuff too. Everything was just bleh. So we're gonna see what I look like with muscle tone and down at the 190 range. So hopefully this offered you some help and insight, and I don't know if I have anything further to add on that, but just wanted to keep you guys in the loop, and be seeing you again on the next one. Peace out.